Welcome to Emerging Franchise Brands, the podcast that introduces you to the visionary founders of America's fastest growing franchise opportunities. We'll also hear from industry pros as they share insights on what it really takes to achieve the elusive milestone of 100 plus locations. I am your host, Frank Fumey, founder of I9 Sports, and my 20-year journey from inception to acquisition has given me a unique perspective on how to succeed in franchising. Join me as we welcome today's guest. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. On today's show, I have the co-founder of Bear Blends. I have Ann-Marie Berdar. Ann-Marie, how are you today?
Good. How are you? Thanks so much for having me.
Thanks. I'm looking forward to talking about Bear Blends. So you and your friend Jessica, your business partner, started Bear Blends back in 2018. Did a little bit of research on you guys. You guys are definitely a little bit different, but I'd like for you to share with the audience how you got started with this.
Yeah. So at the tail end of 2018, actually, it was November of 2018, we came together because Jessica has a decent amount of business experience. And when I had met her, it was kind of 10 years into her own journey with entrepreneurship. And she had owned successful yoga studios. And so she wanted to continue focusing on health-focused concepts and wanted to get into food. Didn't really know exactly how to do it. I came into her life right around that time. We had a conversation about what my goals were and what I wanted to do. And it just so happened that we aligned. We both wanted to do the same thing. We came together and we made it happen. And, that's obviously the short version of that. But her business experience combined with my understanding of nutrition and science and health and wellness and food creation came together and formed something great.
Yeah. So your background here, I've got a little, I've got a little bit of info here. So you have a bachelor's in molecular bio and chemistry and a master's in nutrition. Pretty cool.
Yeah. I wanted to be a scientist for a while. Well, I wanted to focus on medicine, then pharmaceuticals. Then I ultimately realized that the most impactful thing that we can do to improve our overall health is the food that we put into our body and using that as a tool to kind of eradicate chronic disease and just, stay healthy. So I thought, instead of working in a lab or, working potentially for big pharma, why not just do something that I'm passionate about, which is create really healthy recipes that are great for health, and see if I can start a business and do it. And, it went really well. So here we are today.
Here we are. So look, there's plenty of smoothie shops out there and acai bowl franchises. It just seems like, there are more and more every time you turn around. So I would love for you to share with the audience what makes Bear Blends different.
Yeah, for sure. I love this question. So I'm glad you asked. The fact that we are founded by somebody who has a background in science and understands the benefits of the creations that we put together is one thing. The other thing is we're not only a smoothie and smoothie bowl company. We have smoothies and smoothie bowls, and we gained our popularity where we started based on those products. But we offer a wide variety of healthy grab and go things, different sweet and savory items. We also do healthy like waffle toasts that are delicious. We offer sweet and savory varieties for customers looking for a warmer option. We also do salads and grain bowls and fresh pressed juices. So we do the smoothies and the smoothie bowls, but we are definitely more of a all-inclusive cafe where we have options for breakfast, for a midday treat, for lunch, and we have customers who patronize us for dinner as well. So we just have more to offer, and we focus on serving a whole food plant-based product. So we don't put any additives into our products, no chemical preservatives, no added sugars. A lot of the other concepts out there try to cut corners with the production, unfortunately, and they add chemicals in there to preserve the fruit base, or they'll completely take the fruit out entirely and just use flavor enhancers and a ton of ice and syrups. And so it becomes no better than drinking, a soda. Whereas we don't even add ice into our smoothies. We just do it all frozen fruit and any, flavor enhancers we might add in there are nut butters, nuts, seeds. We use fresh herbs from time to time, like mint. We'll use like organic cacao for like a chocolatey flavor. We also created our own proprietary protein. So our protein powder is very clean, and it's something that we use to add an additional protein boost to our smoothies and our smoothie bowls, for the customers that are looking for that type of thing. And yeah, we really focus on the whole food, plant-based lifestyle and enhancing that. And our product is also exclusively gluten-free. So our granola is proprietary. The waffle batter that we use for our waffles is also proprietary, and all of those things are gluten-free. So we're able to accommodate those customers that have those specific dietary restrictions without being overly aggressive about it. With our marketing, we don't typically push constantly that we are this whole food, plant-based, vegan, gluten-free company. We certainly are that, but we like to be very welcoming. We like for customers who are unfamiliar with our product to come in and realize how healthy it is, how delicious it is. And it's worked really well for us.
Cool. Okay. So I was on the website, I looked at the menu. So you mentioned this waffle toast thing, and I saw it on the menu. What exactly is the waffle toast? Looks really good.
Yeah. So we have sweet and savory flavors. The savory flavors are more like avocado toast, but on a gluten-free mini waffle. So the bread is a waffle, and then it's topped with avocado, and we have a couple different flavors. We do just like an original one with some seasoning on top, and then we do a taco flavor. So we make our own taco meat, and I keep using air quotes. I don't know if you can see, but we make our own taco meat because we're vegan. It's made out of walnuts and sunflower seeds. And that might sound crazy, but it literally tastes like taco meat. It's crazy.
Wow.
So yeah, so the toast, they're like little mini waffles basically. But if I guess if a waffle and an avocado toast had a baby, that's what our waffle toast would be.
Okay, that's great. That's a great way of explaining it. So let's see. You have, right now you have 11 locations, right? You have 8 franchise. You have 3 company owned. I understand you're in 4 states, right? Florida, New York, Massachusetts, and Colorado. So where are the company-owned locations? And where did you start opening? In New York.
Yeah, so we started in New York, in upstate New York, and then we expanded that market. We franchised and I know we were talking about it before, but we franchised in a great year.
Yes, in 2020.
It was interesting navigating the challenges that year presented to us while growing the franchise. We did have a franchisee who was interested in 2 different markets, and they wanted to start in the New York market, and then they also wanted to begin to develop the Florida market as well. So we have the same franchisee who has a location in upstate New York where they started, and then also is expanding the Florida market now too. But it took us 2 entire years almost to develop the Florida locations, just because of the issues that we were facing with the municipalities during the pandemic, the supply chain issues we were facing during the pandemic, and also their 2 locations went into brand new apartment buildings. So I'm sure you can imagine just the challenge, like the timeline, for that. So those finally opened. We're so excited about it. But it took forever. I mean, it was crazy.
Yeah, I bet it did. But hopefully that's all behind us now, right? So what is it like opening up new locations? What's usually the timeline it takes to get a new location open?
Yeah, so typically a year is what we project, with figuring out, dealing with the lease negotiations and the site selection. And then it really just, they have to find a contractor, and we give them all the information that they need, and they start the build out process, which could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. It really just depends on how quickly the contractor moves. And I know you're familiar with franchising too, so I'm sure you understand why there's that, that gap, between whether or not they can get it done in 3 months or 6 months. But it's typically that amount of time. And then, they do a little training. We focus on marketing, and then we're ready to open the doors. So I would say anywhere from a year to a year and 3 months.
Okay. All right. So fairly typical then for the retail shops. Yeah.
Fairly turnkey. It's very simple. Our concept, we focus on serving the whole food, plant-based food. And a lot of it doesn't really need to be cooked. Like we don't have any open flame, we don't have any hoods. Our startup costs are fairly reasonable because of that, because our equipment costs are so low
Mhm.
and our footprint is so small. I mean, we can operate these stores out of 1,000 square feet. So that makes it largely appealing for our franchise candidates. But it also cuts down on that timeline because you don't have to wait on all of the crazy equipment that's so expensive to get installed. And it's, like I said, 1,000 to 1,200 square feet is really all you need. So,
Right.
it's fairly simple.
Okay. I'm always so curious on what led somebody to franchising. We always say how franchising found
Yeah.
you. So when you founded the company in 2018, how early on did you and Jessica start exploring like franchising is going to be the way to go for us?
Yeah. So Jessica, she was just finishing the process of franchising her yoga concept.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, the pandemic hit and it wreaked havoc on the fitness industry. It was horrible. And that was the first year when she was ready to start selling her own franchises. So she had a little bit of experience just with, the franchising process. So at that point in time, we already had a bunch of customers who would come to us, kind of, how it starts out in the beginning.
Right.
They come in and they're like, "Oh, you guys should franchise this. This is so cool, blah, blah, blah." And she had just gone through the process and we were planning to open a second location. We thought, if the process in New York State to become a franchise takes about a year, why not kind of start the process now if that's something that we are considering doing. So
Mhm.
it kind of just started there and then it really snowballed. I mean, we opened another location, everything went really well. We were franchising. We definitely jumped the gun with it a little bit.
Mhm.
But we were able to adapt as we continued to grow and expand. We've grown quickly, I think, from an outsider's perspective, but internally, we've really focused on optimizing and elevating the different aspects of our franchise so that when we're ready for that next phase of growth, we know exactly what we need to do from a support standpoint and just from a company growth standpoint. So we grew quickly, but we've grown intentionally as well.
Yeah. So how many company-owned locations did you have then before you franchised? You had the two?
Too. Yep.
And then since then, so you've added the third one. Is the third one, is that the one in Colorado?
No, we have a company location in New York as well. They're all very close to each other.
Oh, okay.
The Yeah, the location out in Colorado was one of our first franchisees.
Okay. And so
Yeah.
the growth strategy, but it sounds like your growth strategy initially was let's start go regionally. And well, people come to you. Is that what happens? Somebody says, I want to open one of
Yeah.
these.
Yep. Yeah. And not fully, I think, understanding all of the things related to supply chain at the time, and
Right.
especially going through it during a pandemic, it was one of those things where we were like, this is awesome. Like, let's do it.
Sure.
And thankfully, it worked out. We became a member of IFA after that point. And I remember somebody asking me at IFA, why would you do that? And I remember replying and being like, well, because it was just so cool. And they were like, thank God it worked out for you because it doesn't always work out for a lot of people. And that was the first time when I, put my thinking cap on and I was like, oh, I
Oh,
could kind of see why, like that makes sense.
right.
We expanded there first and then we were, focusing on growing the New York market. And then we had that franchisee who already owned a location in New York also want to do the Florida locations, and they are one of our top performing franchisees. So we were very comfortable allowing
Sure.
them to go down into that other market. And, we're very hands on and very supportive as well. So we're still kind of like a small little group, and it's really nice and it makes support easy for now.
Right. Right.
And then we expanded out into Boston as well, which is not too far from upstate New York. So we
Yeah.
decided that would be a good location too.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Well, look, the horse left the barn, right? Going to Colorado. So,
Right.
but doesn't mean that you
Right.
have to keep growing, out west until you're good and ready.
I would love to. I mean, the product's well received out there. People love it. I don't think it's something that is enjoyed in one particular area over another. I think it's just about marketing the product, getting it in front of people, introducing the brand, to a new customer base, and then growing from there.
Yeah. How did you get started with franchising though? Did you guys seek, I know Jessica had been involved with trying to get the yoga studio off the ground and franchising, but did you guys seek outside help in franchising? I heard you said you joined the IFA after you already started franchising. Who did you lean on? How did you get everything you needed to franchise your company?
Yeah, so we started working with the same group that Jessica worked with when she franchised the hot yoga concept.
Okay.
Again, she couldn't do much with that after she had already become a franchise because of the pandemic, and then especially in New York where we are, it was so challenging for fitness during those 2 years because they were shut down and then they finally opened back up, but it was like rebuilding businesses from scratch, you know? So she just decided to not focus on the hot yoga spot franchising at that time. And we worked with the same group of advisors that she had worked with the hot yoga spot concept. And then we franchised, we started selling some, we started opening some, fast forward a year or two. And there were things like, I think anybody who's new to the franchise space, it's such a unique type of environment where you really don't know things unless you have somebody there to show you. And we started to experience some things related to just like simple things like internal communication, for example. We were like, how do we structure this where we're not getting texts and calls directly from our franchisees all day, every day?
Right.
How do we like channel the communication and streamline it, and just little things like that, that you really don't know until you know. And I had a bunch of questions, and we got connected with, oh my goodness, somebody from IFA just through like a friend of a friend.
Okay.
And they had said, oh, you should totally go to this conference. And I had no idea beforehand. I was like, I don't know what IFA is. Nobody told us. We had no idea. And so I went the first year that we became a franchise, and I felt like I was a kid in a candy store. The people that I connected with were all amazing. There were so many different people there from my industry that had a wealth of knowledge and experience to share. I mean, it was really the best experience ever. And it allowed me to focus on my business and the growth of my business and just the operations of my business in a totally different way. And I loved it. I mean, I love the entire franchise community and the entire franchise world. It's so special. And it's, when I went to IFA the first time, I was like, wow, like I'm with my people, sometimes like being an entrepreneur and like being, especially in upstate New York, and, not knocking upstate New York, I love it here, but there aren't a lot of people who are in the same world as I am every day. So it becomes challenging when you try to look for mentorship, or you look to join a group of, entrepreneurs to discuss issues with, or just, bounce ideas off of, and they're not really here, or maybe I'm just having trouble finding them. And so when I went to IFA and I was able to connect with all of these like-minded people who were so excited about franchising, it just felt like I was at home and I was with my people. And I still connect with a lot of the people that I met at that first IFA today. So
no, Ann-Marie, I think you perfectly described what it was like for me when I first went to my first IFA convention, because you don't even know what you don't know. Probably, I would imagine, like, you go in thinking you're in the nutrition business, right? I know I went in thinking I'm in the sports business, and then you start learning about franchising, you realize, okay, wait a minute, that's just a vehicle that we're using, because you said it yourself, you had an issue with like trying to figure out communication. I'm sure you learned about all the different technology and resources that were out there. And now all of a sudden you're learning on how to be a franchisor, because it has nothing to do with the nutrition business now. And it has to do with how
100%.
Right? We have to make our franchisees successful. And we're
Right.
using nutrition as that, again, I always say as the vehicle, but at the end of the day, we're in the franchise business is totally different than just being, having a smoothie shop or running a sports league or a home services business. And it's a
Oh,
huge,
100%.
huge responsibility. When you're really
Yeah.
realizing other people's success, you feel a sense of responsibility to that, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, their success is our success, is the
Hmm.
brand's success. I mean, you can't have one without the other. And I agree with you. You really are in the business of franchising. It doesn't matter what you do. Everybody in the franchising world essentially does the same things in one way
Right.
or another. And when I took a CFE credit course during the first IFA, and it was hosted or sponsored by Profit Soup, and they were talking about just kind of how to break up the different aspects of your franchise and how to focus on each aspect of it in a different way. I'm not doing it justice the way I'm explaining it, but it was basically like putting everything into its own category
Hmm.
as it relates to your business. So, for example, marketing was a category and operations was another. For us, we're food service, so we have, cost of goods and cost of sale and things like that. And your labor goes into another, and it was like very basic things. But
Right.
when they outlined it on paper, and I was like, wow, like I can look at my business through this global lens and I can compare how my businesses perform with my franchisees' businesses, which are all ultimately my businesses. And,
Right.
we can like, we'll start benchmarking and we'll start,
Hmm.
figuring all of those like KPIs out. Like I went into my first year of IFA and I had no idea what a KPI was. Like people were
Sure.
using all these fancy, acronyms, and they're like, yeah, well, we need this, that, and the other thing, your KPIs and your this, that. And I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Look at you
But
now. Now
um
today, using key performance indicators and using dashboards and everything early on is really, though, it would have been a dream 20 years ago for people to
yeah,
have access to what we have today, because it has changed a lot. The availability of resources in franchising has enormously progressed, which
right. And
allow some
go ahead.
folks like you and Jessica starting out, where you get to almost act like a well experienced franchisor, having access to those tools that normally you wouldn't have, and you don't have to make those
Right.
mistakes.
And that's really, I think, just the beauty of this franchise community. There are those resources out there, and you are able to take advantage of them. I guess now, I didn't actually know that they weren't always available to everybody. So that's
Hmm.
great to know that I came into this at a good time. But it's nice to know that those are there and the support is there. And I think the one thing that really sets franchising apart from any other industry is you could have a conversation with your direct competitor and they are so willing to help you in any way, shape, or form. It is the most interesting thing to me. Like I went into IFA with an agenda. I had a list of people that I wanted to target and talk to and, pick their brains about things. And I found them and I just, introduced myself and I was completely transparent, about
Sure.
what I was doing and who I was and the questions I had. And they were so willing to sit down with me and just answer any question I had. Like
Hmm.
it show me their own spreadsheets and show me their own tools and resources that they use to optimize their own businesses. And that, I think, to me was the most special piece of it. It's like all of these people are there to support one another because we all care about the health and success of franchising as a whole,
Sure.
which is nice.
Yeah, Ann-Marie, we just did a hell of a commercial for the IFA. Let's let's get back to Bear Blends and talk about.
Yes, sorry.
No, that's okay. I don't. I want to make sure we do the brand justice, because
Yes.
I like to think about who our audience is. Right, our audience are folks that are either starting out in franchising or people who are looking to be franchisees. And
Yeah.
for one of the most common questions I get for people that are looking to franchise their company is, I don't even know where I'm going to get franchisees. Like, where are they going to come from? Who were yours?
Yeah.
Where did they come from?
They come through the cracks, I swear. It's so we did not initially work with a company to sell franchises. It wasn't something that I wanted to do initially
Hmm.
because I wasn't sure exactly how it was going to go. I didn't want to put myself in a position where we sold 30, 40, 50 stores right off the rip and had no idea how it was going to go. So we focused on growing organically. And honestly, every single lead that we've had up until this point is an organic lead. So really, to be honest with you, I don't know how, and I'm not the right person to ask this question because we have also put no money behind marketing the franchise. I think for us, it was largely word of mouth, and it was people who were customers who also had some business experience, or honestly, the amount of and it might just be our website, but the amount of people who will email us from out of state and just say, hey, I came across your concept and I would love to learn more. We have them fill out like a franchise application form online. And
Sure.
if we think that they're, a good fit for an initial conversation just based on that, we put them through the first round of, initial conversations, and then eventually they work their way up to Jess and I. But yeah, to be honest with you, it was completely organic, and that piece of it was intentional. When I was talking before about the growth being slow and intentional, that was one of the reasons why we didn't decide to just work with a company that could sell these franchises. Not that I'm not confident that we could sell a bunch of them. I mean, it's a very healthy company. It does very well. Our EBIT looks great, but I think for us, it was more about, okay, what is going to happen when we open our first franchise? How do we support this person? How do we figure that out?
Sure.
And so that's what we really focused on. And I honestly think I like the slowly but surely intentional growth because it allows us to pivot and make changes as needed. And actually, one of the things I forgot to mention was at the first IFA convention that I was a part of, I got connected with Sam Ballas, who is brilliant and amazing and definitely somebody I look up to every day of my life. And him and his team have kind of helped us iron out any kinks that we had with our initial group of franchisees in the hopes that we, are now kind of ready to continue to grow and blow it out of the water. And I think I skirted around your question a little. I don't know if I answered it, but yeah, organic leads. That was your question.
Yeah.
Organic leads, yes. And great community of people kind of helping us grow intentionally.
Okay. How many people are part of your team?
So right now we have only 4 on my corporate. Well, sorry, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7 on our corporate team, and then just, our franchisees and their management.
Okay.
If you want to count that.
Yeah. So just to talk about franchise development a little bit. So when leads are coming in, how early do you and Jess get involved in the franchise development process?
I would say after the second call, like there's a vetting call, they fill out an application. If their application looks good, it goes to the next step. They communicate with someone on our team. And then if that conversation went well, then Jess will have a conversation with them. And if that conversation goes well, then we'll all sit in on like a brand review call together. So just a couple steps. It's nothing crazy right now.
Have you thought about who's your ideal owner? Like what traits do they need to be successful?
Yeah, I've put a lot of thought into this, and it's changed over the years. I think my ideal owner is somebody who understands food service and, just fundamentally understands benchmarking in food service and just the big costs and has some experience operating a food service concept. That's paramount. That's number one. Has, just an understanding of business and how the numbers work. I prefer the candidates that want to be owner operators because naturally they're more involved in their business and it is, a customer facing business. So, I know that isn't always the most appealing to franchise candidates. I know they want to just throw their money into something and just, watch it grow, but our concept does very well with people who are owner operators, who are hands-on, or they have managing partners. So, if a franchise candidate is only interested in being an equity partner, that's fine. But we definitely require that they have a sound operating personnel, likely an operating partner who is there and involved in the business day to day, who can, keep an eye on everything. So it's definitely somebody who can be involved. The other thing that I look for when we're vetting candidates are people's ability to follow directions. So
Mhm.
I'll ask a bunch of questions related to, when in their past life have they done something where they, in their career currently or whatever, where they follow directions or they have helped a team member succeed, just like little things like that. Because I like to see that they're able to create kind of that team environment, follow directions. What is their organizational behavior like? That's important to us. And then the most ideal franchise candidates also prioritize health and wellness in their own life because they become a brand ambassador for Bear Blends, right? They are the owners of their businesses and they're representing a brand that is largely focused on health and wellness. And, as much as we all love cheeseburgers, it's not a good fit when you're selling smoothies and salads and you're trying to share all of that with people around you and you don't personally believe in all of
Mhm.
that. So I think for us, it's how does our candidate prioritize health and wellness in their own life? We actually have a franchisee who is a nutritionist by trade. And that individual didn't have a ton of business experience, but her passion that shined through when she was, applying to be a part of the franchise and ultimately working her way through the process was so incredible. And she's great with people and she just loves being in her store every single day. And she really believes in the product that we serve and she's successful. So it's,
Mhm.
it's great to see things like that.
Yeah, your answer is so well thought out in terms of the profile now of who the franchisee is. I picked up though
Yeah.
early on when you started to answer that, you said, well, it has changed. And again, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
so I think back again to the person who's listening to this podcast that's maybe getting into franchising. Where was your head at? Who did you think was the right franchisee early on that turned out to be, no, it's now this, which is, again, is super detailed. And I can see that person now. That avatar is pretty well refined.
Yeah, to be honest with you, anybody who wanted to make Bear Blend successful, like honestly, day one, and I don't
That's
think
great. I love it. That's great.
I don't think I'm alone on that island of emerging
You're not.
franchisors when they're like, oh my God, like you want to invest in my company? Are you kidding?
Right. Right.
That, and
I'm honored. You want to buy one of these?
yeah, and that take that with a grain of salt. Obviously, like it
Sure.
wouldn't be anybody, but I think it kind of goes back to what we were saying before too, where like you don't know what you don't know, and until you experience working with people who aren't the right fit for you
Yeah.
necessarily, you don't know what that person's like, until you see the differences between wow, like I have this group of franchisees, they're all wildly successful, they're all crushing it, they
Mhm.
love the brand, how do I get more of that? Then you can start to identify like what those characteristics that make them successful are, and then you only want to focus on those moving forward.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, the way you described it is not unique. We've all been there
Yeah.
starting out, right? We're just so excited that somebody wants to invest in our franchise. But
Yeah.
again, I think you've done a masterful job of identifying who the right franchisee is. I'm thinking more about though, as a food concept, you have a challenge that maybe some other concepts don't have, and that is franchisees that are in it and they're living it have ideas of change that they want or different menu items. How do you navigate that as a co-founder where we are introducing or testing, but we still have to adhere to what the menu is?
Yes, great question. So yes, we've experienced that in one way or another. I think for us, and one of the things that, one of my mentors kind of taught me was you have to operate from the mindset of ready, aim, fire instead of ready, fire, aim. And what that means to me is, when we come up with something that could be an LTO or something unique that our customers maybe haven't tried before, we vet it at a corporate level and we have a very open communication with our franchisees and our managing partners. Every single week we hop on a call with all of them, whoever wants to be on it. And we just talk about what's going on. So I myself and my operations personnel will hop on the call and talk about, something related to cost of sales management or labor management or budgeting or whatever it is. And a lot of the time we talk about the LTO. Here's what's coming for this time next year. Here's what we're testing out, just so that they know that we hear their feedback and we are staying engaged with what they are suggesting. But we're not necessarily saying yes or no to one individual store, one individual franchisee who maybe has a great idea. We say, we hear you and we're kind of doing what we think is right for the brand. We're testing it out. We want to make sure that we're encumbering the cost and any potential inflection that might occur if you do XYZ before you do it, right? We want to make sure that if we are requiring you to purchase any kind of equipment for an LTO, we're testing it first. We're making sure we know exactly how it works, create the SOP, put it all together, send it to you in a pretty little package, and then we kind of go from there. It's a challenge, but I think if you focus on maintaining that communication and just letting your franchisees know that, your opinions are heard. I think it's a great idea. We'll try it, and they feel important just for being acknowledged. If their important idea is acknowledged, if it goes well through testing, there's no reason why we wouldn't adopt it, but there are definitely also times when they come up with ideas where we're just like, it's probably not going to work out. Here's why. And you bought a franchise. So it's tough, but we also, and when it comes to auditing the locations too, we go regularly to all the stores. We make sure that they're all in compliance. And so they can't really sneak too much past us. But I would say overall too, with our franchise system, we haven't had too much inflection there. We've definitely gotten a lot of feedback about, oh, what if we tried this? And what if we tried that? Which is great. I don't mind. I actually like it when they come up with ideas, because that means to me that they're really engaged with everything that's going on. So I actually love it. But yeah, we haven't had nothing too crazy. We're a vegan, gluten-free company, and I haven't had a franchisee recommend that we start serving meat. So I'm good.
That's fair enough. Some of the best ideas you're going to find over the years are going to come from franchisees that are living, breathing, eating, drinking, sleeping the business, right? They're on the front line. But I think, of course, one of the challenges, yes, we can do this at your location, but more importantly, can we do this everywhere else? Because that's part of the process of being part of a franchise, is that we have to be able to replicate this. And we can't just have a one-off because your location can do this. Doesn't mean we should do this. And, food, I guess, is not so unique. I have to deal with that too in sports, where maybe a franchisee wants to try a different sport, or they had a background in it. But yeah, I know you have a background in it, but that's not what we do. And it's the same reason why McDonald's doesn't offer pizza or hot dogs. They could, but they don't, So I agree with you. And I would say franchising is a push-pull relationship. But as long as we're all rowing in the same direction, we may not always agree on everything, but we have to agree on the general direction of where we're going. And
right. And I do think keeping it, especially when it comes to food and quick service food, I think when you keep it simple, it's more consistent, and that's how you really grow a food concept. It's when, it's simple enough and you're always delivering on your promises, your menu, and eventually, just having that patience where what your efforts are paying off and you see the growth in your business, that's when they start to realize oh, okay, this was right. I just had to believe in what we were doing from the beginning. For example, I've had a franchisee who, when they first started, they were a little slow to start and they were freaking out. They're like, oh my God, what do we do? We got to do this. We got to do that. Let's do all these other things, and we were just kind of just give it some time. And success really, if you have direction and you have action, then the third variable in success is typically time. You just have to give it some time. You have to trust the process. You have to continue delivering. You have to continue to be consistent, because really consistency is what is going to set you apart from any competitor. And eventually over time, you'll get there. And they did finally see that. So, yeah, sometimes it's also just kind of having those conversations with them, I think, when they have really good ideas.
Right.
Is, just trust the process. You bought into this business so that you could be a part of a franchise system, a part of a proven system, you know?
Sure. And at the same time, you may not have realized when you were starting out on how much you were going to be doing business coaching.
Oh, not at all. Oh no. To be honest with you, so we started Bear Blends at the tail end of 2018. I was
Hmm.
22 years old and I knew nothing. I'd like to think I know more now,
I
but
think that's safe to say.
de- depends on the day, you know. But yeah, no, I think I just really didn't know. And I didn't feel it as to what I would be doing. You know, I was like,
Mhm.
okay, we're going to franchise one day. Like, what am I going to do? You know, what's my role going to be? And it took me a little while to figure that out, but yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's business coaching. It's teaching people how to be business owners. It's talking to people about their problems. I
Mhm.
mean, it's being a very unique support system. You know, you're not family, you're not a friend, you're kind of a business partner, but you know, they're still their own business,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
you sometimes have to be really very careful about what you advise them on. But yeah, it's such a unique relationship. And I think it takes a special type of person to be a franchisor because you really have to deliver things the right way when you're speaking to your franchisees.
Mhm.
You have to be their support system because you want them to feel invested in the brand. And ultimately, you are the brand. Like you're the
Right.
one who created it. They want to be close to you. They want to hear about your thoughts and what's going on. And yeah, I think that's basically what I do every single day. You know, it's I guide them the way I need to. I guide my team the way I need to. I mean, I'm sure
That's
you could
cool.
probably relate, right? To the
Yeah, yeah, but Anne-Marie,
yeah.
I got to be honest with you. You don't speak like somebody that's only been in franchising since 2020.
Thank you.
That is, I'm telling you, a huge compliment. You have done a lot of research, obviously, but more so, you are living it, and you have been obviously very reflective on everything you've learned in franchising in less than 4 years. So kudos to you. What are you most
Thank you.
proud of with Bear Blends?
What am I most proud of? Wow. This is such a hard question to answer, and my close people close to me, like friends and family, have asked me this too, and I just do a really bad job of giving myself any type of credit because I'm always one of those people that looks at things and I will pick out the tiniest little negative and I'll just run with that, you know? So it's a hard question, but I think what I am most proud of is I guess what I'm the most proud of, but also what I feel the best doing is watching a franchisee succeed, like
Hmm.
watching them hit their goals and knowing that I played a role in that. Like the thing that, you know, I ultimately created got them to where they are. And that makes me feel really good. I'm really proud of that. I think I'm also just very proud of the brand that we have as a whole because I personally care a lot about health and wellness,
Hmm.
obviously. I also really care about the environment. And I know that a lot of people out there are starting to as well, you know, care about both of those things, health and wellness and plant-based eating and the environmental impact, the things that we eat, consume, and do, you know, every day impact health, wellness, and the environment. So I'm really proud to have created a brand that focuses on positively impacting all of those things and knowing how many customers we have now across 4 states who make a really good choice every day for their health,
Hmm.
for their wellness, and for the health of their environment and you know the planet ultimately. I mean that's kind of my goal when it comes to this business is
Hmm.
I really want to grow into as many areas as we can because I know how many people our product is helping. And if our business model can help our franchisees be successful, then that's great because we're helping them, you know. And
Sure.
if our business model can help our consumers live healthier lives, live more functional, like longer functional lives where they can, you know, I mean, health is so important, right? If you take care of yourself, you can do whatever you want to do for as long as you possibly can because you prioritized your health. You can spend time with your kids and then your grandkids and hopefully live a long, happy, healthy, functional life. And it really boils down to the things that you put into your body and the decisions that you make, you know, your lifestyle choices. So I think knowing that we're helping um, with that, with our customers and with our franchisees, that's something that I'm most proud of. That for, you know, all the people that told me that healthy food wasn't possible because it's so expensive and you have so much waste and you're never going to be successful. Like if you are able to be successful with healthy food, everybody would do it.
Did that drive you? Did that help drive
Yeah.
you? Why don't you
100%.
why don't you tell me a little bit more about that? Because there are people listening to this podcast that are hearing the same thing from friends and family that love them and don't want them to fail. That's why they tell them that. But I want to know what was driving you when you heard all the reasons why it wouldn't work.
I just naturally, I want to prove people wrong. So I think when somebody tells me no, I immediately just want to show them why. I think the other thing is when I got into this world, I did it at a very young age. And I think that gave me a little bit of comfort with the risk because I knew that if I wasn't where I wanted to be in 5-10 years, I'd only be 30, so I could then hopefully make a ton of connections if it didn't end up being successful, and I'd figure it out and pivot and, do something else. And I know that that's putting it very lightly because I don't think that that's always an option for everybody. And I think the immediate fear of becoming an entrepreneur, starting a business, starting a franchise is, okay, what if it goes wrong and I'm investing all this time and energy and money into it? What am I going to do, if it doesn't work out? And I think worrying sometimes is the thing that it ruins your attitude and your mindset, and rightfully so. But for me, I just always focused on, okay, don't worry, give it a go, see where it gets you, and what's the worst that could happen, right? So I think just focusing on that kind of allowed me to accept what I was doing and really give it a go and prove those people wrong. And the other thing is, like, if you look at the way that we eat, when we eat things like all the junk foods and the highly processed foods and a lot of the ultra processed meats and just the things that aren't necessarily improving our health. If you look at the cost of those things compared to whole foods like lentils and beans and rice and some greens and grains and things like that are actually beneficial to our health, those plant-based things are actually cheaper than the highly processed, ultra-processed frankenfood that's out there. And if you just start to kind of shift your mindset and get really creative with what you can do with those healthy, largely inexpensive plant-based foods, you can make magic happen, and that for me was another big motivating factor because I looked at the cost of things and I just said, I can do it. Like, I just knew that I could do it, and that really just motivated me because I was like, maybe no one else has done it because they couldn't figure out how, and I'm going to figure out how.
That's awesome. You weren't afraid to fail.
I wasn't. I think the other thing, I'm just going to add one more thing, was when you really believe in something and you put all of your time and energy and focus on that one thing that you're truly passionate about, I think it's hard to fail. I think if you really invest like every ounce of your being, if you really care about it, if you really believe, if you really manifest it, you can do it, and I don't want to sound like a motivational speaker, but to me, it's hard to believe if you're putting every ounce of your energy into getting to a different place or achieving your goal. I mean, why wouldn't you?
Sure. Ann-Marie, you're living proof of that.
Thanks.
You are.
Trying.
And I like to say that sometimes when we're scared, screw it, we do it scared, right? If we're scared of doing something, okay, fine, be scared, but you're still doing it, whatever that takes.
And it ebbs and flows, like there are very high highs and there are very low lows, and the very low lows are scary, but you kind of just have to figure out how to pivot and work through it.
Absolutely. And I always said when I had a big challenge that most people would have quit by now. And because of that, I'm definitely not quitting now. And that seemed to kind of re-motivate me. That's what was going through my head when I was in my late 20s and early 30s. And then throughout my career, it was like, well, screw it. I don't care. Yeah, this is horrible what's happening right now. But most people would never have even gone this far. We're going to plow through somehow. And it just would,
Yeah.
because that's the hardest part about being an entrepreneur is that you have to pick yourself up. There's nobody to pick you up. Now, in your case, you do have Jess. You guys are business partners and you have a huge advantage that you guys can bounce ideas off of each other and you can pick each other up. But even so, you still are who you are and, your programming and everything you learned as a child and up to adulthood. So you still have to deal with your own stuff as you get through challenges. And entrepreneurship is not easy. And then you add franchising and you're now feeling the weight of responsibility on all these franchisees and their livelihood. It's an enormous responsibility, an enormous task that most people wouldn't be up to. And you're doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to. I think you got to focus on what the long-term goal is. Like you sometimes have to take the empathy out of it and focus on, okay, where do we want to be collectively? And you have to make decisions for your franchise as a whole, not just what's going to benefit you. And I think for any emerging franchisors out there, just focusing on what their why is really important. Mm-hmm. And I, especially when things do get challenging, I always have to revert back to, why the heck am I doing this every day? Because it can become so challenging sometimes. And you have to go back to, what is it that I wanted to accomplish here?
Right.
Because sometimes it can be very polarizing.
Yeah. Ann-Marie, I've enjoyed our conversation. I can go on and on about this side of it. I just think it's the psychology of an entrepreneur and a franchisor to me is something that's near and dear to my heart on what drives us and how we push forward. So thank you for sharing so much insight on that. I do want to ask you if someone was interested in learning more about Bare Blends, how can they get more information?
Yeah. So we have 2 different websites. Just bareblends.com has a bunch of franchise information on it. And then we have a formal franchising site called bareblendsfranchising.com. We have a ton of, FAQs on there, a lot of information about Jess and I. And if anybody wants to just look to see where we're located or they want to see the products that we offer, they can just go to bareblends.com. We have all that information there.
And the Waffle Toast.
Yes, the Waffle Toast. I mean, let's normalize Waffle Toast, that's actually a good point too. So Waffle Toast, unique, right? People know what smoothies are. They kind of know what bowls are. They know what salads are. But whenever, if you're an emerging franchisor and you have this really unique concept, you're like, well, I love it. People need to know about this. Don't give up on it because I swear, the people who come into our stores, they're like, what the heck is a waffle toast? And then we give it to them and they're like, oh my God, this is the greatest thing I've ever had. It happens almost every time, so I feel like definitely just believing in the product that you offer too is so important. Keep believing it, keep sharing it, and people will definitely love it.
Yes. Gosh, we spent so much time early in the podcast talking about the IFA and everything we learned and how generous the community is. But I end every podcast with the tip jar because the franchise community is so generous. So maybe you could add something. If I was an entrepreneur looking to franchise my concept, Ann-Marie, what's a piece of advice that you'd give me?
Yeah, my tip is always IFA. Anytime anybody asks me this question, I would just reach out to the people who have done it before you because you definitely don't know what you don't know. And you want to know what you don't know. And the sooner you know what you don't know, the better off you will be. I think getting involved and going to not just IFA, but the other conferences that are kind of through IFA and just for emerging franchisors and just honestly, even conferences that are kind of in your field. There are food related conferences that aren't necessarily affiliated with IFA that I love to be a part of. And I think the more that you can learn kind of about your industry, the better, you position yourself. But I do think that there is somebody out there who's kind of done what you've done in one way or another, or maybe has done something similar to what you've done in one way or another that knows more than you do. Go find that person and pick their brain because that's just worth its weight in gold. I mean, it really makes such a difference when somebody can point out to you what you should be thinking about at this point in the process.
Ann-Marie, that is fantastic advice. Thank you so much. I wish you and Jess all the continued success with Bare Blends. And thanks again. Thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you for tuning into the Emerging Franchise Brands podcast. For additional insights, guest applications, and to stay connected, visit us at efbpodcast.com. The Emerging Franchise Brands podcast is for entertainment purposes only, and the views expressed do not necessarily represent those of Emerging Franchise Brands, its host Frank Fumey, or Emerging Franchise Group, LLC. Any discussed franchise or investment opportunity requires thorough investigation, obtaining proper disclosure documents, and expert consultation before making any investment decisions. The podcast and its host do not offer professional advice or endorsements, and they hold no responsibility for actions, representations, accuracy, or consequential damages related to the podcast content.